doing that nice light flowy motion here. We're gonna start off with a circle. I'm really just carving out this circle here. You'll notice that I'm gonna make a ton of lines. And that's kind of part of this rough sketch here, is the more lines we put into place, the more we can go back and find our favorite line to darken in, and we have a lot to choose from. I'm just keeping this extremely light. So once we have our circle in place, we are then going to add in some construction lines that are really going to help us out with the rest of the features for Goofy. So our first construction line is actually going to split our circle into 2 equal halves. Starting at the very top, I'm just bringing a nice, very light line all the way straight through. And you'll notice the line actually continues past our circle. Now keep these really, really, really light because they're just our guidelines. They're not going to be used as any part of his face at all. It's just going to help us out to put the facial features on his face. Pardon me, that's quite the tongue twister there. Alright, so right below the circle, we're going to add in our next line, and that's just going to be where the circle's sitting on this line here. It's just going to go all the way straight across. So it's going to look like we have a little stick man just sitting there without any legs. So with our construction lines in place, we're going to add in some more shapes that are going to be the place of Goofy's muzzle or his snout. So to do that, we're going to add in 2 ovals. Much like the circle we just created, we're just going to squish them down a little bit. And you'll notice when I place them on the paper, I'm going to have them at kind of an angle here. So my first oval is going to sit in this little quadrant right here. And I'm just lightly sketching out this oval so I can go back and change it up if I feel maybe it was too big or too small. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to have this oval pointing in the opposite direction. So they're almost just sticking together now. And this is going to be his muzzle. So our first feature, other than his muzzle, is going to be his nose. That is the very first thing we usually like to start with because it kind of is the center of the face and it kind of just helps us branch out all over. So right where this construction line meets our vertical construction line, right below it, we're going to add in another oval that's going to sit right in between the 2 we just drew. So I'm rounding this out. Now it's okay if it's not a perfect shape. We're not looking for perfection. Goofy is extremely silly. So if he looks too perfect, that silliness kind of fades away a little bit, and we don't want that. So we have his nose in place. Now, we can find our favorite line from that oval on his nose, and we're going to darken that in. So find your favorite line, just go all the way around that oval, just darken it in a little bit. And if you want, later on when we're done, we can go back and shade it in just to give a little bit more contrast, so it's not just all black and white lines. So now that we have that nose darkened in, we're going to go right above it and add what we call snout lines. Now, because we have him facing directly in front of us and he's looking at us, we're going to have it show a little bit of a perspective to show that that nose is really pointing out just a little bit further. So that's what these lines are for. Now, right above his nose, we're going to add in the same hill shape that we created for that first oval. So I'm going to do one line right here above it. It's going to be like a nice arch or a rainbow shape sitting right above his nose. And then we're going to add in one more above that. Now this is just going to be a little bit shorter. We're still following the same shape, but as we go further and further away, things get a little bit smaller. They're a lot bigger when they're right in front of us, and that's how we show that perspective. So now that we have those snout lines in place, we're then going to add his cheeks. And his cheeks just sit on either side of those snout lines that we just created. It's going to be 2 C-shaped curves on either side of his face. And they're going to connect our circle to our ovals. So right in between, I'm adding one C shape here. And I'll do the exact same thing on the other side. Now, as we have our cheeks, when we smile nice and big, our smiles actually press right into our cheeks, and you see little creases right in the inside here. And that's what we call our smile lines. And Goofy has these too, so we're going to add those in. And to do that, we're just going to add in some rainbow shapes that are going to sit right inside of those C-shaped curves we created for him. And then we're going to add our smile in next. So we're just going to add in a little line. It's going to peek right on the outside of those smile lines. And I'm stopping right as I get to that oval, and you'll see why in just a minute. So once we have the smile in place, we'll move on into darkening up his cheeks or his muzzle. So on this side, I'm just going to bring in a line a little bit past that smile that we just created for him, and then I'm going to darken in my favorite line from this oval. Now, I'm not going to darken in the middle part here just yet. I'm going to go back on either side, darkening in the sides of his muzzle here. And I have this little gap, and it looks like we have the 2 ovals that kind of peek right up into his nose here. We don't want that. We want to just go all the way across and connect both of those ovals. So now we have that full muzzle here. Now, Goofy has some pretty signature features, and one just sits right below that muzzle. Can anyone tell me what that is? The teeth, exactly. Has those really silly buck teeth. So we're going to add those in next. And to kind of gauge where you want to place them, you can use our cheeks here as a guideline. We're just going to go right below the cheeks and add in these nice rounded out square teeth here. And it's kind of funny that I said rounded out and square, because those two usually don't go together. But as you can see, I'm kind of taking away any sharp curve. So I'm rounding out those sharp curves on his teeth. We usually like to keep our sharp curves or our sharp edges for our villains. Kind of gives them a little bit more of a menacing or evil look. And Goofy's definitely not either of those things. Want to make him look really friendly. And as you put those teeth in place, it almost looks like he has two marshmallows sticking out of his mouth. So right below the teeth, we're going to finish up the rest of his bottom part of his face by adding in the bottom part, which is the jaw. So to do that, we're really just going to be connecting those two teeth with a stretched out letter U. So on either point here, you're almost going to bring down this smile line from either side. So if you kind of gauge where those two cheeks are once again, you're going to bring in some lines that are going to just go right through that. And that's where we get that stretched letter U here. And we want to separate his jaw from his bottom lip. So we're going to put in his bottom lip next. And that's just one curved line that's going to sit right in between those two teeth. So right up here at the top, I'm just going to bring in a nice curved line here. And that really shows the difference between his bottom lip and his jaw. So this kind of marks our halfway point for drawing Goofy. How's everyone doing?
Good.
Are we hanging in there? Yeah? I'm not going too fast for you, am I? No? All right. Oh, very quiet this morning. Hope you all had our breakfast. All right. So as we move on, we're going to start with the next feature, which is going to be his eyes. Now his eyes are the most important part. That's our focal point. That's where we get all of the emotion, all of our attention and detail goes right into those eyes. So we're going to start off with the same exact shape. We're going to do what looks like two ovals that are going to be sitting right squished into each other. And before I do that, I almost forgot my more important question for you. Are we having fun?
Yeah.
Very good. See, we can all agree on that, right? All right. So we're going to get started on those eyes now. And we're really just going to be following the same exact shape of this circle here. On either side, we're going to bring in two curved lines. And you can kind of start at the snout here, or the snout lines, and bring in two curved lines, just really following the same shape of our circle. And I'm leaving a little bit of a space up at the top, because we're going to do something else there. We're not going to close it off as a circle here. We're really going to turn these into two ovals. So at the very, very top, we're going to add in what's going to look like a curved letter V. And we're going to make those look like those two ovals just kind of smashed right into each other. So on either side, on the very top, I'm going to bring in a curved line or an arched line. They'll sit right back into that construction line we created. And it's going to bring out that curved letter V that I was talking about right at the very top here. And it also brings those two eyes really, really close together. It makes them look extremely silly. And I'm just giving those in a little bit of a dark shade here because we are keeping those eyes. And like all of us, Goofy has eyebrows. So we're just going to mimic that same arch shape that we have at the very top for his eyebrows. And on either side, I'm going to add in that nice curved arch. They're going to connect at the top here. So I'm just bringing two curved arches that connect. So it looks like one of those old-fashioned birds everybody used to draw. Or that you might still draw. It's completely fine. And as you noticed, it really just went right back into that circle that we originally created. So if you want to, we can darken in the sides of his head just by finding your favorite line. And if you think that maybe his head might have gotten too big or too small, this is your chance to correct it. That's why we drew so many lines in that circle. So we can really just find our favorite one and make it fit right where we need it to. But right now he's looking a little scary, right? It looks like he just got off a tower of terror. Probably a little too early. He competed to get his breakfast this morning. So we're going to add in those pupils next to really waken him up a little bit. And if you want, you can get extremely creative with this. This is your Goofy. So if you want to add in some hearts for his eyes, you're more than welcome to do so. We are getting really close to Valentine's Day. Or if you want to add in some, googly eyes, some lightning bolts, whatever you want, this is is your opportunity to do that. As for me, I'm going to give him a little bit of a silly look by adding in one oval that's slightly larger than the other. So on this side, I'm just going to carve out this nice oval here. This is going to be my larger oval. So I'm just really getting this oval into shape before I lock it in here. And then I'm going to go on the other side and make one just a little bit smaller. And really give him that nice, silly, kooky look. And before I darken them in, I want to give him a little bit of a light source or a highlight to his eyes. So I'm going to add in a smaller circle or oval on the inside here at the very top. And when I go back and darken in my eyes, I'll darken in everything but those little highlights. So I'm going to go in and outline my eyes, really lock in that shape. And then we're going to press extremely hard down on our pencils. We want to get that nice, even, contrasty tone all the way across our eyes here, making this the darkest part. So it's the very first thing you look at. Now, Goofy's original name wasn't Goofy. It was actually Dippy Dog. But it wasn't as fitting as Goofy, so they changed it eventually. He also debuted as a member of the audience in a short cartoon called Mickey's Review, and that wasn't until 1932. So he didn't show up for quite some time until after Mickey was created. But the folks loved him, so he became one of the Fab Five. All right, so now that we have those eyes in place, we're only missing a few more features. We're missing his hair, and we're missing his ears. So I think we should get started on his ears next. There's some really cool shapes, and you can get extremely creative with this too. If you want, you can have his ears just hanging off the side, or if you want, have one going over his head and left and right. It's whatever you want. But we're just gonna get this basic shape down so that way you can see the way his ears look. So I'm just gonna have them hanging off on either side, but I really wanna place these in the even spot right at the center of his head here. On either side, I'm gonna add a little notch just to kind of show where I want those ears to begin, making sure that they're even on both sides. And then I'm going to bring in some swooped lines or stretched out letter S's on either side of his head here. And it's okay, you see, notice I'm not really focused on where it's going. I'm not trying to get it perfect. I'm just really getting this shape into place and keeping it extremely light. The lighter I keep it, the easier it is for me to go back and find whichever line I like best. So now that I have this basic S-shaped curve going for his ears, I'm going to give it a little bit of thickness here. So I'm going to start at the bottom. So wherever I want my ear to end, I'm going to bring in this hook shape, or this like long candy cane here. And then I'm going to follow that hook shape all the way back, just following the same line I originally created for his ear. And as I bring it up closer to his head, it's getting a little bit thinner, so it's tapering in just a little bit. And then when I have it where I want it, I'll go back and find my favorite line and darken it in. Now, so you notice that nice teardrop shape we have at the bottom here. It's nice and thick down at the very end, and at the very top it goes in nice and skinny. We'll do the same thing for the other side. So on the other side here, I'm just going to find a nice curve shape wherever I want that ear to end. And then I'm bringing it right back into the shape that I originally created for his ear, making sure it gets skinnier at the top. And then I'll darken in my favorite line. And if you want, you can even add in a little bit of shading to kind of make it go quicker because these ears are kind of bigger. You just use the side of your pencil. So if you use the side, you actually get a nice even tone and less time to shade. And I'm not going to really focus on making sure the shading is completely filling the ear. I'm just giving it a nice contrasty tone here. See how quick that is? Very fast. I may go outside the line just a little bit, but that's okay. A lot of rough sketches are not perfect. You only see the perfect images when they go onto the TV or on the movie screen. But when we do these guys right here, you see a ton of lines. It's very messy. It's the best part about it. You don't really focus on your perfection, so it's cool. All right, so now that we have the ears in place, the next feature is his hair. And the hair is super simple. It's just 3 lines that flick right at the top, right in between those 2 eyebrows. So right here in between, I'm just going to do 1, 2, and 3. And his hair is done. Now at this point, if you want to go back and darken in anything else that you think might have faded away in our process, you're more than welcome to do so. I'm going to darken in maybe the bottom part of his jaw here. That kind of faded a little bit. And if you want to really scruff him up to really look like Goofy, you can add in a few freckles or a few marks right here. A little bit of some whiskers. Just to show his nice scruffiness. can even darken in his nose a little bit. But really, when all is said and done, our very last step of our class today is to sign your name. We are all honorary artists. So find a blank spot next to your Goofy and sign your name. And there you have it, your very own portrait of the silly goof himself.